Hi guys, I'm Louise from Louise's Recipes and Helpful Hints. As most of the people that know me know that I'm an old Southern cook who likes to share my recipes through social media. And basically up until now I've just been posting pictures and how-to tutorials. But I've had lots of people ask me how I make my biscuits. And I thought I would give it a shot at videoing this and see if I can do this. So if you'll just bear with me, I'm going to try to show how I make my biscuits. And what we're going to do is I usually will make them with buttermilk, but I don't have buttermilk today. And for if you don't have buttermilk, you don't have to make them with buttermilk. But I have like a mock version of buttermilk that works just as well. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to start out with 2 cups of just regular 2% milk. And then about 1/4 of a cup of white vinegar. And just put that in there. And the reason I'm doing this first is I just sort of stir it together and set it to the side. It kind of gives the milk and the vinegar time to do its thing. I've already sifted 2 cups of flour in this bowl, and I'm going to put 2 more. So we're going to do a total of 4 cups of self-rising flour. Now, I always sift it because it just sort of makes it gets any lumps or anything like that out of there. By the way, this old sifter belonged to my grandmother. I've had it all these years. Love it, love it. Alright. After doing that, I have 4 cups of self-rising flour. I'm going to make me a little well, a little hole in the middle of my flour. And I've already measured out 1 cup of shortening. Now you can use any brand shortening you like, but you put this down in your little well. And then, now I've got all kind of little gadgets and stuff that I bought, but you can actually use your hand or a fork. But this here is a cutter that I got online to be able to cut the shortening into my flour. So you just take and just start working it into the flour. You know, I work it pretty good until I've got it mixed up pretty good. Back in the day, I'd watch my grandmother do this, and she would just use her hands to do it. But, you know, all these modern technology gadgets make it a lot easier and makes the process go by a little faster. Now, once that you got all that incorporated, once again, I'm going to make just a little bit of a well. I'm going to take my 2 cups of milk and just pour it right in. Then I'm going to stir it all together. Get it incorporated really good. Sometimes the dough will be just a little too dry and hard to work, but most of the time, if you stick close to the measurements, it's going to turn out pretty much like you want it to. Now, I've got all the dough mixed up. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my sifter and put me a little more flour in it. And get it ready. You can sprinkle around some flour. I actually have a pastry mat here that helps also, but you don't have to have all of that to be able to do this. Just a flat surface where you can work your dough. Now you're going to take and dump your mixture out onto your floured surface. I over the years have just kind of watched videos and different stuff and tried to figure out how to make better biscuits, because I always like to try to learn different things. But I thought I could make biscuits pretty good, and I shared a recipe, and I had a friend say that the biscuits were good, but they were a little too dense. So I started researching and going online, and I found a technique called layering, and I've worked and worked with it till I think that I've pretty well perfected it. But now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take a little bit of my flour and shake it over the top of my dough. And I run my hands in this so my hands don't stick, but I'm going to pat on the dough and sort of form a little ball. Hope you can see this well enough. Now, I'm going to take my dough roller, and I always sprinkle a little flour on it. And then I'm going to start rolling the dough. And you can just, however, roll it out and just kind of keep it where you can work with it. If the dough is too sticky and wants to stick to your rolling pin, you can always just add just a little more flour on top of your dough. Okay. If you touch the dough, you shouldn't be able for it to stick to you. Now this is my first rollout. I'm going to add just a little bit of flour here, just tiny bit. Now you don't have to do this like this, but this here is another one of those little handy gadgets I got. You actually, if you wanted to, you can just take your hands, work up under the dough and pull it. Then because you do that, underneath it's going to be a little more dry, so you're going to have to, and then just pat it down. And you keep doing this. This is called layering it. And I'm going to take now, but you can continue to do it with your hands if you don't have this, or got something else you can turn with. There's another turn. You don't have to turn it too many times to get the hang of it. Okay. At any time, if your dough starts feeling too sticky and won't stick to you, you can add a little more, just a dusting of flour. I'm going to roll again, because I'm going to turn it one more time before I roll it out to make my biscuits. I'm up under it and turning it again. And I just kind of work the dough around so I can keep it where I can roll it out easily. And it don't hurt to mash it with your hands and stuff. I'm just going to dust the top just a little bit. At this point, we're ready to roll it out to cut out our biscuits. Now, I've already preheated my oven. I preheated it to 475. And once you get your biscuits rolled out and put on your pre-greased pan, which I'll show you, I've done that already. You just keep, making it large enough that you can get quite a few biscuits out of it. And don't go too flat, but, it's about maybe ½ inch. Alright. Now, I've got my greased pan. I just take my fingers and put lard on there, and it works like that. Now we're ready to cut the biscuits. Here's my biscuit cutter. Now you can use anything. You can use a cup. I have used in the past like a mason jar lid, but just whatever works for you. There again, and you just kind of flour it so your flour won't stick to it. Now, I learned from one of my videos that I told you I looked at, the lady said, once you cut the biscuit, don't turn. Just cut straight down and let the biscuit sit while you cut out the rest. So, here we're going to cut. I'm just mashing down, not turning. Now, they may stick a little bit, but just sort of wiggle it back up. Straight down. And continue to cut them out. Okay. Now, we're ready to, excuse me, ready to start picking them up. This is the first time I've ever did this. I was just trying to keep the camera where you guys can see what I'm doing. Okay. Just pick your biscuits up. Here's my first one. And you're going to line them up on your pan. I hope you're able to see this, and I'm hoping that this is help to those that maybe really don't know how to make biscuits. I'm sure a lot of you can make some really good biscuits. And maybe could even teach me a thing or two. Alright, so far I've got 10 biscuits out of this, but I've got extra dough, and I'm just sort of going to work it to make those extra 2 biscuits, because I usually will make 12. Alright, you just can gather your dough scraps back up. It won't hurt a thing. Pat them around, work them around till you got a little ball where you can cut you out the rest of your biscuits. Now sometimes, depending on how thick I cut my biscuits and so forth, I may not have extra. But there's one. And it's pretty thick. And 2. He might look a little deformed, but hey, he's edible, I'm sure. Okay, now my biscuits are ready to go in the oven. Like I said, I got it on 475, and I preheated that. And we're going to put them in the oven for approximately 15 minutes. So, when I come back, hopefully I will have some really nice biscuits, and I'll take and garnish the top of them with some melted margarine. You can use butter or margarine, but most of the time I just use plain old margarine. So, I'm going to put you on pause, and I'll come back once the biscuits are done. Maybe I didn't put you on pause. Alright guys, that just came out of the oven. This is the biscuits now. I've melted some margarine over here, and I'm getting ready to brush the tops of them. Gosh, they smell so good, guys. Now, if you try my recipes, and you want to, if you will, just share on my blog or on my webpage how it did for you and what you thought, and share a picture if you will. Just, let me know. And if you like this, I'll try to do more of it. This was my first attempt at doing it on the video, so I'm hoping that everything turned out well. I was a little nervous and may have forgotten a thing or two, but hopefully not, and hopefully you guys did enjoy it. Alright, here they are, all golden brown and good. And I know my family's waiting, ready to dive in. I was going to show you the inside of one if I could cut it, because they're pretty hot after this came out of the oven. I don't know that I'll hold on to them because it's so hot, but there you are, guys. Thank you for watching, and hopefully I'll do another one before long. I've had people request for me to show them how to make homemade gravy, and I really do have a good old southern brown homemade breakfast gravy recipe that maybe I can share with us before long. Thank you again.